Okay, welcome. This is the Premier Chess Adult Beginner. This is the Spring 2021 class. And this is week, I believe this is week 8, maybe? I think it's week 8, yeah. So last week we were talking about territorial domination and how to gain space and take a slight advantage and convert that to victory. So this is just a game that's really wonderful. I think instructive in many ways. This is the World Championship match: Boris Spassky, Bobby Fischer versus Boris Spassky, 1972 in Reykjavik, Iceland. This is Game 6. Um, and this is Bobby Fischer won this, and I think this was actually the first time that Bobby Fischer ever beat Boris Spassky, and so and it was very momentous occasion. I mean that alone was a momentous match since the Soviets were completely dominating the chess world for the entire 20th century. So here comes this poor Jewish kid from Brooklyn, genius kid, and comes and topples their dominion beautifully. So yeah, after this game, after Boris Spassky resigned in this game at the end, he stood up and started clapping, and then the rest of the audience joined in clapping. So everybody was pretty impressed with the result. So okay, so let's look at this. So Bobby Fischer's white, Boris Spassky is black. So first move is c4. Now I don't know if you guys are familiar with Bobby Fischer's style, but he was never a c4 player. But Bobby Fischer was always an e4 player. One of his quotes, one of his famous quotes was e4 and I win. So you can see the level of humility that he had when it came to chess. He had none. There's some great movies that kind of feature his life. The recent one is Pawn Sacrifice, and that's kind of about his life from the beginning of his life as a child prodigy in Brooklyn until his match in Iceland with Boris Spassky. Is a great movie. Came out 2014, and then there's a movie Searching for Bobby Fischer, which talked a little bit about his history. So that's cool. Okay, so c4, and then we have e6, um, knight f3. Okay, so both controlling the center towards the center, very good. So e6, a little bit passive, but we're gonna see this transposes into what does this opening look like now? Anybody?
Queen's Gambit.
Yeah, this is a Queen's Gambit decline position. A typical setup, typical move order would be d4, d5, c4, e6, and knight f3, and we reach the same position. But this is kind of transposes into the same line. So okay, so let's continue. So knight f6, very natural developing moves. Knight c3, natural developing moves. So both players are vying for the center. Okay. Bishop e7. Okay. Natural developing, preparing to castle. Okay, bishop g5. So yeah, there's a couple of possibilities here. White could have played perhaps bishop f4 to gain control of the long diagonal, h2 to b8 diagonal. He could have played e6 and then maybe bishop e2 castle, or e6 and then bishop d3 and castle. So a lot of different ways to proceed. So he went bishop g5, putting pressure on the knight that is controlling the center a bit.
Can,
So
can I ask you one question?
yeah, go ahead.
What was the reason for the bishop e7?
So let's see, bishop b7. Okay, so bishop b7. I mean, it's just a natural developing move. He could have also have played bishop b4. It's kind of considered acceptable. Again, pinning the knight. That's controlling the center. So just different ways of fighting for the center.
Because that made, to me, I would have thought that was the move that he would have made.
Bishop b4. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's a good move. I mean, bishop d6 looks kind of like another good move to gain control of this diagonal and go and fight for e5 square. I think one downside to that is now white can go c5 and now gain space and hit the bishop, right? So gain space with tempo, right? Simultaneous attack. Now the bishop has to move again, right? So
So isn't
now
the E7 a wasted move?
well, why do you say
What does
wasted?
it produce?
Oh, you mean bishop d6
The bishop to E7.
bishop e7? Not so much of a wasted move, because I mean it's a natural square for the bishop. And I think here, yeah, probably two possibilities are bishop b7, bishop b4, because bishop d6 just asks for this pawn to move and attack the bishop again. So I mean, I think either are pretty good in this situation. So yeah, it's not that bad. It looks a little bit passive, but it's not really that bad. All right, so let's continue. Bishop g5, cast. Oh, by the way, Max and Artemi, if you have any questions, just stop me and let me know. All right.
Okay.
Okay.
Just let me know. All right. So bishop g5, castle, e3. Okay, again, solidifying a center, opening up the bishop. Okay, h6. So asking the question, what do you want to do with the bishop? Are you going to take my knight, retreat to h4? Oh, sorry, h4, or go back to f4? So he retreats. So yeah, so a lot of time, remember I tell you guys that um, when you have a possibility of making a capture, it's not always a good idea to capture, right? Sometimes it's good to maintain the tension, right? So here, there's definitely tension. Even though this knight is not pinned to the queen, there's still tension, right? Because there's always the looming possibility that the bishop can capture. So sometimes it's just better just to maintain that possibility. So that's what he does. Bishop h4, b6. So now here's the problem in this setup. So now White's bishops look pretty comfortable, right? The pawn chain is on a lot of dark squares, but White got his dark square bishop outside the pawn chain, so pretty good idea. And the other bishops on f1 is a good bishop, right? Because it's the opposite color of the pawns.
I have a
So
question.
yeah, go ahead.
Would G5 be a blunder?
G5 here. I wouldn't say that's a good move. Because I think that unnecessarily opens up the king. And then maybe White can start maybe h4 and try to open up the h file and get an attack going. Yeah, I think that's kind of too. It's like how do you call that? He's overextending himself. I don't think that's worth it.
Okay.
Yeah. So
Is it better just not move the king's pawns at all for the first?
Yeah, I mean, let me ask you,
you.
Artemi, what's the reason that you want to do G5?
To trap the bishop.
So you mean maybe knight H5 and potentially take the bishop, take the knight, take the bishop? Okay. Yeah, I guess it's a possibility. Maybe follow it up with F4, maybe. Yeah, I mean it's a possibility. Perhaps. So yeah. Okay, but maybe at this level they don't really want to unnecessarily expose their king so quickly. So maybe he doesn't do it for that reason. All right, so bishop h4. So yeah, so what I was saying is White's position right now, the bishops are very happy, right? This bishop is outside the pawn chain. This bishop is a good bishop. Now, in Black's position, which piece would you say is not happy? or put another way, which piece will have a difficulty in getting developed to a good square?
The white bishop. The white bishop.
Right, the white bishop, right? The knight, not so much. The knight can maneuver around all these pawns, but this bishop really is not happy, right? He only has one square that's open to him, and e6 is blocking the diagonal this way, and then the pawn on b6 on b7 is blocking this way. So this is kind of a little problem in Black's position. What are you going to do with this bishop, right? So one possibility is maybe maybe b6 with the possibility of bishop b7 on the long diagonal, or bishop or b6 with the possibility of bishop a6 and hopefully trading off that bishop for White's bishop, right? So that's also another possibility. All right, so let's continue. So b6. So by the way, this is called the Tartakower system of the Queen's Gambit declined, when Black intends on fianchetting the bishop on the long a8 to h1 diagonal. All right, so b6, c takes. Okay, so this is interesting, right? So now So now black is kind of revealing his plans. Perhaps he wants to put the bishop on b7. So now maybe white says, okay, now I'm probably going to take. If I take now, and he takes back, with the pawn, now this bishop on b7 doesn't really have a nice future, right? And to bring the bishop now onto f5 would kind of leave the light squares a little bit weak on the queen side, right? So that's kind of, so taking the pawn here is kind of an attempt to kind of botch up black's plans, right? You always have your plan, but then at the same time you got to try to hinder your opponent's plan, right? At the same time. Okay, so c takes d5. So he doesn't take back with the pawn. He wants to keep the diagonal open, right? So he takes back with the knight. Okay, knight takes d5. So now a few exchanges occur. Bishop takes e7, queen takes e7, knight takes e5, knight takes d5, he takes d5. Okay, again. So now so again, these light squares are kind of weak, and the bishop does not really want to go to b7 because it's going to be hitting a brick wall here. So all right, so let's continue. So actually, let me ask you guys, in this position, what would you guys do if you were white in this position? What do you think?
Develop the light squared bishops you could castle.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, bishop e2, bishop d3. They're both good moves, and just prepare castling. It's a good move. So now what just changed in this position? Now we have half open files, right? So white has a half open C file to work with, and black has a half open E file to work with, right? So first thing Fischer did was take advantage of that half open C file and put pressure on C7, right? So that's a pretty good move, kind of like trying to paralyze this pawn, right? Okay, so bishop e6, developing his bishop, not in the way he intended, but okay. And now queen a4, interesting move. So why would he do that? Why do you think he did queen a4?
Because he wants to attack the rook and the light squares.
Oh, this rook on a8?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Oh no. The knight is protecting the squares on.
Yeah. He can't go there now. Yeah. Why else? Why else do you think he would go to a4? What do you think? What do you think?
To protect against the check on b4.
Yeah,
By the queen.
yeah. I think this check on b4 is a pretty annoying check, right? And I think white definitely has a space advantage, right? The bishop's got beautiful scope, the rook's got beautiful scope. And so again, when you have a space advantage, you don't want to trade, right? And conversely, when you're cramped, you do want to trade. So black would welcome a queen trade. So I think queen a4 kind of prevents queen b4 for the moment. All right, and also he's trying to paralyze this pawn if he can. He doesn't want it to move forward, but in this position, he does it anyway. c5. Okay, so now what would you play here for white? What do you think is a good move here?
Why not pawn to C5?
Okay, so take the pawn here. All right, so let's see. Takes. All right. Okay, so that kind of maybe that you could say that gives black some weaknesses. Right now, black has 3 pawn islands. Right now, we have an isolated pawn here. It's a possibility, and now maybe these pawns will be targets. All right, so he did that not just yet, but what did he do first? What do you think he did first before that move? All right, I'll say this: how can he put more pressure onto c5? What do you think? Because again, right, this is tension, right? This pawn can take, so perhaps not yet. You want to take it when you have the maximum advantage. When
Queen
you can
c2 maybe.
queen c2. Okay, so queen c2, and now I think now you're helping black alleviate his weaknesses. So now he can come c5, c4, maybe, and then followed by b5 and a6. And now he's got a beautiful pawn chain there. So you don't want to allow him to push. If possible, you want to prevent this push. So how do we prevent that?
B3.
B3. Okay, so B3. Okay, that would prevent it. That's true.
Knight e5.
Knight E5. I mean, it still allows for the push. Yeah, still allows for the push. Yeah, what else? How do we increase pressure here onto C5 and prevent this pawn push?
Queen A3.
Yeah, Queen A3 is the move that he played. Very nice use of a pin, right? So remember, every time I talk about when you look at a puzzle, right? Some things you should immediately assess and think about, right? Before you consider possible moves, right? You think about material, right? Who's winning material? You think about space advantage, and the other thing you think about is loose pieces, right? Loose, unprotected pieces, right? So let's go back. So you scan black's position, and what's loose or unprotected? There's only one. Well, actually, the rook is, but it's kind of hard to attack the rook. But the queen right here, the queen is unprotected, right? So how do you apply pressure and utilize that fact? So Queen A3 does a beautiful job of pinning the pawn and applying more pressure. So yeah, this is a very uncomfortable diagonal for the black queen to be on, right? So very nice use of pressure there and unprotected piece. Okay, so rook c8, he comes to protect his pawn again. All right, so now, okay, what would you do? What would you do if you're white now? What do you think?
Bishop to A6. Oh, no. Take it back. Forget it.
Okay. Okay. So yeah, I think you're correct in that this bishop is the last piece to develop, so we probably should do something with the bishop, right? So what do you think? Where's a good square for the bishop?
Bishop b5.
Bishop b5. B5?
Yeah.
So yeah, bishop b5, yeah, is the move that he played. So that's a very nice move. Again, trying to paralyze these pawns, prevent their movement, and developing the bishop, preparing to castle, right? So yeah, very good move. Bishop b5. Black plays a6. And now what do you think white played here? What do you think? Any ideas?
To retreat the bishop to a4.
Bishop to a4. Okay. All right. Possibility. Anybody else? Any other ideas?
I think he ignored it because he can't take the bishop because he can take the rook of his queen.
Yeah, very good, very good. So again, this rook unprotected, right? Always keep in mind unprotected pieces, right, on the board. So rook is still unprotected, queen is still unprotected. So we have a nice pin on the a3 to f8 diagonal, and now we have a nice pin going on the a file, right? So a3 is not a threat just yet. So he took a moment to create more weaknesses. D takes c5, b takes c5, and now he took a moment to castle. Even still, forgetting about the pawn, and now black goes rook a7. Right, this was given as a dubious mark, and the author was saying perhaps queen b7 is better, protecting. Queen b7 does two things. What does queen b7 do?
Attacks the bishop and protects the rook.
Attacks the bishop and protects the rook. And actually three things. One more thing is it removes the queen from this diagonal, right? So now this pawn is able to advance forward, no longer pinned, right? So it does a few things. So rook queen b7 was probably the better move, but he played rook a7. Bishop comes back to e2. Spassky finally developed his knight. Knight d7. Okay, so what do you think Fischer did here?
Well, he could take the pawn. Bishop to a6.
Bishop takes a6. Okay, so the queen and the bishop are both attacking a6. The rook is the only one defending. And what if bishop takes a6? What do you guys think? What can black do here?
Double his rook.
Right, double his rooks. Rook 8 to a8, and this bishop is lost, right? This bishop is pinned to the queen. So no good. Don't go pawn hunting just yet. Got to improve your position a little bit more. So what else? What's a better move than bishop takes a6?
He could develop his knight to the center because the c pawn couldn't take it because of the pin.
Excellent, very good. So let's look at knight d7. What did knight d7 do? Knight d7 changed a lot of things in black's position, right? So before knight d7, this rook is protected by the bishop, queen and rook protect each other, and the knight's protected by the rook. So all of black's pieces are protected, and now knight d7 happens. Now what's the difference? A lot changed. You guys see? Now the queen and rook are both cut off from each other, both unprotected. Rook's now unprotected. so this knight just put a wrench in everything. And so again, now this pawn is pinned once again, and the c pawn is pinned on the c file as well. 2 pins. So yeah, knight d4 was a beautiful move to trade away the bishop, right? So here, what would you play for black here? What do you think?
Maybe RB7.
Rook b7. Let's see.
Sorry,
Here.
that doesn't make sense. I thought it was an unprotected pawn. Never mind.
Yeah. Maybe he just takes here, and now he's kind of skewering the rooks here. All right, let's go back. What else? What do you think would be a good move for black here?
maybe move the knight away so everything is protected again.
Knight. Which square do you want to move it to?
I would personally choose f6.
F6. Yeah, F6 is a good square. Yeah, knight F6 towards the center. Queen is now protected. Rook is now protected. Everything is good. Now the knight is in danger, right? So yeah, so that's a fine move. So possible continuation would probably this is a possible continuation. Knight B3, maybe back knight D7, and then we can double the rooks. Let's see another continuation. If he doubles the rook here, rook A to C7, knight takes, queen takes, defending the pawn, queen takes. All right. All right. So this kind of leads to a lot of trades and equality, looks like. Okay, so let's go back. Another possibility is king to F8, bring the king closer. So, I mean, it kind of looks like the queens might be traded soon. So it wouldn't hurt probably to bring the king one square closer to the center and protect the queen, right? So that's also a fine move. But Spassky played queen to f8, which was given as a mistake, just because it just seems very passive, right? So yeah, queen f8. Okay, so Bobby Fischer took the bishop, knight takes, f takes. Okay, so now you're white. What's the best move here? What would you do?
Bishop to b5.
Bishop to b5. Okay, pawn's pinned, cannot take due to the rook being unprotected. It's good, but doesn't really have a concrete goal though. So yeah,
That's
so
my game.
it's all right. It's all right. So what else? Any other suggestions here?
The rook on the D file, maybe?
Oh, the other rook, the F rook.
Yeah.
Okay, so activating this rook. Okay, possibility. It's not really going anywhere though because this pawn, protected by the E pawn. So yeah, kind of not going anywhere. All right, what else? What else?
Oh,
white
what
do?
about bishop to g4?
Yeah, bishop g4 is good, right? It's focusing on the weakness on e6. That is good. You're saying that the e6 is a weakness, is a weak pawn in the chain. So yeah, that is a good move. He didn't play that move though. Okay. So yeah, so the idea with this position is that pawns like this, when they're when they're together like this and they're more fluid, right? They can do it. They have the potential to do different things and before they even commit to what square they're going to go, right? So basically, so your goal when your opponent has pawns like this, you want to get them to commit to certain squares so that you can possibly like pin them down or just get them cemented into a position where they can't where they lose their mobility, right? So he wanted to create weaknesses in the center, and additionally he wanted to provoke d4, so that he can plant his bishop on c4, which would be a beautiful place to put the bishop, along the same diagonal as the king. So what do you think Fischer did to provoke d4? Any ideas?
Pawn to e4.
Yeah, e4, very nice move. So it does a few things, right? So e4 provokes d4, and if he doesn't take, he can probably take, and then these kind of will be little targets as well. But also additionally, it opens up the third rank. So now the queen can pivot to the king side and put pressure on the king, and also maybe control this diagonal, the h2 to b8 diagonal. So very nice move, multi-purpose move there. e4, right? So black responded with d5, d4. Okay, so now black has committed to the dark squares, which is beautiful for white. Since white has the light squares, white can dominate, and black has no bishop. So very nice. So what would you play for white here? What do you think?
Bishop to C4.
Yeah, so that is the natural move, bishop c4. He does eventually play bishop c4, but not yet. So he does a move, a few moves first before playing bishop c4. So what do you think? Although bishop c4 is nothing wrong with it. It's a very good move, beautiful square, and pinning the pawn to the king. So what else do you think white can do here? Good move.
Move his rook
Okay, so rook to what square?
to D1.
Okay, rook f to d1. Again, this rook doesn't really have a future right now in the d file, since, especially now, if you go rook to d1 also, now you're giving him a chance to get rid of this weakness. Now he moves e5, and now this is a beautiful structure here on the dark squares. So he has complete control on the dark squares, although the bishop can dominate the light squares, but this is a beautiful protected passed pawn right on d4. So the goal for white is now Fischer does not want to let black push e5 and solidify his control over d4. So how can he prevent e5? So
Pawn
bishop
to
c4
F4.
is one possibility. Go ahead.
Pawn to F4.
Yeah, pawn f4. Yeah, very good. So now if he pushes, he takes, and he's got a discovered attack on the queen, right? So a very nice move. So f4 does a good job of preventing e5. So Spassky responds with queen e7. Again, he wants to try to push this. He wants to get this pawn push in. Okay, so now you're white. What's the best move here for white?
Bishop c4.
Yeah, so bishop c4 is a good move. Nothing wrong with it. Again, pawn is pinned, so he can't move it forward. He just changes the move order a little bit. He does it one move later. But so what's another move he can do now that has the same goal?
Pawn to E5.
Yeah, e5 is a beautiful move. Now this pawn is pretty much permanently fixed onto e6, which makes it a very weak target and for the bishop, right? So very nice move. E5 completely fixes the pawn. So black tries to activate one of his rooks, rook b8. We have bishop c4, very natural move. Okay, and now here and now white is immediately threatening f5 and going to win this pinned pawn. So black immediately moves his king out of the way of that dangerous diagonal. So now white to move. What would you do here?
Move your queen.
Okay, to what square? Hey Max, you got kicked out? You got kicked out, Max?
I did. I got another call. I'm sorry. I'm back though.
Oh,
Wanna
no
catch-
problem. No problem. No problem. Welcome back. Okay, so it's white to move here. So white
I
played
was think-
e5, fixing the pawn, and then king h8. Yeah, go ahead.
I was thinking of moving them across, but I'm not sure whether G3 or H3
So
or any other space.
all right. So what do you think? G3 or H3? Why don't you pick one? Which one?
Help.
Life is full of choices.
I know I picked the wrong one. G3.
Yeah, you're close. H3. He moved his queen to H3. So now, why do you think Fischer chose H3? What's the reason behind that?
He'll eventually play G3.
Not for that reason. What else? Why did he choose H3?
To
Attack
add
the
another
pawn.
attacker to the pawn.
Yes, additional pressure on the E6 pawn, right? So
Oh.
even though this rook has moved to B8 and is putting pressure on the B2 pawn, Fischer is glad. He's only delighted to trade this B2 pawn, which is doing absolutely nothing, for this E6 pawn, which is actually preventing these pawns from becoming even more dangerous, right? And removing the blockade to the pawn on its way to promotion, right? So yeah, very nice trade, or a very nice evaluation of a trade of pawns. So queen h3. So knight. So obviously he didn't take this pawn, right? Because Spassky did understand that this pawn is very important at keeping white's pawns at bay. So knight f8. Okay, now what would you do for white here?
F5.
Okay, so
No, it doesn't make
f5.
sense. Well,
So yeah,
it's
so
protected by the rook.
Say again.
Yeah, because it's protected by the rook. You could advance that pawn.
Okay, so let's see. F5. Pawn takes. Maybe rook takes. And actually here, rook takes b2 would be a mistake. Why would rook takes b2 be a mistake here? It appears that black just won a pawn. What do you think? What can white do?
Can move his rook to F. No, the other rook.
Oh, this rook. Oh, rook here?
Yeah.
Okay, rook c to so rook c to f1. Okay, that's you are piling pressure on the f8 knight, but there's actually a stronger move than that. Anybody see a
other
stronger
rook-
move? To
The
where?
other rook to f7.
Yeah, rook to f7 immediately. So you could say this rook kind of skewers this rook through the queen,
Oh,
and
yeah.
so either black gives up this rook, or black is going to have to trade queen for a rook and a bishop, which is generally considered advantageous for black, or for white. Sorry. So yeah, that would definitely be winning. So for that reason, so he does f5 eventually, but not yet. So first he just wants to take a moment to save this b2 pawn, and also render these rooks useless on the queen side, right? And then once these rooks have nothing to do, then he can focus all of his attention on the king side, right? So yeah, first shut down any counterplay on the queen side. And that's also great strategy as you're going along your plan, is if you can prevent counterplay from your opponent, all the better. All right. So b3, a5, again, hoping for counterplay, hoping for a4, hoping to open up lines and perhaps invade with the rook. So what would you do for white here? What do you think?
Pawn to F5.
Yeah, so now he chooses f5. I think you could also have done a4 to stop this advance, but he does f5 immediately. So yeah, these pawns are really they have desires of pushing forward and breaking open the black king side, right? So f5, E takes f5, rook takes f5, and again the rook on f7 is the threat. All right, so black goes knight h7, and now what do you think white did here?
What if you bring the rook, the white rook on c1
Mm-hmm.
to f1?
C1 F1. Yeah, that's a good move. Just doubling up rooks. That's good idea. But there's actually okay. That is a good idea. Yeah. So that is what Fischer did. So my question is, why didn't Fischer do this rook F7 move? It appears this wins the queen again, right? Or the A7 rook. So why did he not do rook F7? Anybody see? What do you think? Why is that? Why would that be a blunder?
Knight to g5.
Yeah, knight g5. So with knight h7, Spassky set a little trap here. He was using tactics to prevent rook f7 for the moment, right? So if rook f7, yeah, knight g5 forks the rook and the queen, and so if he takes the queen, we can take with check, right? And so it ends up that black will be winning here. Black is now up the exchange, and he's going to get rid of this pawn. So yeah, now it's tides have turned. So got to be careful, even when you are winning. Always be careful of little pitfalls like that, little tactics. So knight h7. So calmly he doubled his rooks, and now here's where we begin to see that that white or black is he's really running out of good moves, almost zugzwang, right? So black doesn't really have a plan here, and his basic plan is just to bide time and wait for white to do the invasion, right? So rook c f1, queen d8, so not much he can do. Queen g3, rook e7. So now Fischer went h4 to prevent the knight from possibly jumping here. So again, reducing counterplay from your opponent, right? Very important strategy. So now the knight is completely trapped on h7, cannot move anywhere. So that's a very good move. Rook b to b7, and now e6, right? So now the pawn pushes forward. The diagonal is open for the queen. These rooks are dominating on the f file. This pawn is 2 squares away from promotion, backed by the bishop. So very, very overwhelmingly powerful position for white. Right? There's a quote by Nimzovich that you can explain this move. The passed pawn lusts to expand. That's a quote from Aaron Nimzovich. Right? So passed pawn always wants to push forward and go to the promotion square. Okay, so rook b to c7. So again, black has no concrete plan. He's just waiting for white to do something to invade. So Fischer. So again, when you have a superior position like this, again, don't rush. Right, you take your time. Make sure that the time is just right for you to make some exchanges and open up the position. Right. So right now, Fischer's basically slowly improving his position, very slow. So queen e5 centralizes the queen very nicely, pins the pawn onto the king. Now we have queen e8. So now we have h4, a4, again, completely shutting down any possible counterplay with a4. So now the queen side is basically all shut down. The center pawns are pretty much stopped dead. This pawn is the center of the game, and the rook's ready to invade at any time. Okay, so queen d8, black is just shuffling back and forth. Rook 1 f2, queen e8, rook 2 to f3, taking his time. Queen d8, nothing to do. Bishop d3. Okay, so now finally he makes an interesting move. So now he repositions his bishop onto the nice diagonal here, perhaps setting up some kind of mating threat, right, on the b1 to h7 diagonal. Okay, queen e8. Queen e4. Okay, so now he's setting up a battery here. So now what is white threatening after queen e4? What is white threatening to do?
Hey, he's going to move his rook and then,
Rook to where?
no, well, he can move him anyway. But the point is,
White has a very concrete threat here.
Rook
Okay.
F8.
Say again?
Rook F8.
Yeah, rook f8. Very nice move, right? So that he's definitely threatening rook f8. If the queen takes, what do you do?
Queen G7.
Queen h7. Yeah,
Oh yeah.
good.
H7.
Yeah, queen h7, mate. Very good. And if the knight takes, we take with the other rook, and then we go queen h7 next move, right? So very nice little combination there. So knight is forced to move. Knight f6. And now what do you think white did here? What do you think white did here?
The rook has to take the knight and set up a mate.
Yeah, so now it's time for the exchange sacrifice, right? Now is the perfect time to open up the position with rook takes f6 without hesitation. Rook takes f6, g takes, rook takes, and now the king is open, the diagonal is clear. This rook is dominating, ready to take on h6 with check. So king g8. There's not much he can do. Okay, so now what would you do if you were white here? What would you do? I think it's at these kind of moments where a lot of beginners they flounder because you say to yourself, this must be a winning position, but how do I win? Right? So the idea is to turn a winning position into a win.
so queen to h7.
Queen to h7. No, you lose your queen.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
that's why I'm a beginner.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. All right, what else? What else can we do here?
Well, queen to g6. No,
Okay, so
forget
queen
it.
g6 check. Now you're allowing a queen trade, so you definitely don't want to do that because
Right,
remember now what black is down, or sorry, white is down the exchange,
Right,
right? So you don't want to
right.
allow trades. Also, you're on the attack, so you don't want to allow exchanges. So what else?
What if you did pawn h5 and then you did queen to g6 because your
Pawn
queen
h5.
would be protected?
I think if pawn h5, then the queen can just take here,
Oh yeah. Okay,
right?
never mind.
Yeah.
What about
Okay.
Queen G4?
Okay, so queen g4 check, and now this rook can block very nicely, and now it's white that's on the defense, right? So yeah, we don't want that. So what else?
H8.
Queen F4.
Queen f4. Let's see here. Queen f4. Okay, that is a possibility actually, because now it looks like this pawn can be taken. But what do you guys think? Can this pawn be taken? Would that be a good move for?
No, because then you could bishop c4.
Yeah, bishop drops back, and now the rook is going to be lost, right? And even if he, actually, you know what? Even, yeah, there's actually another reason why. Let's go back. Hold on. Wait, where were we? Okay, bishop, king g8. Hold on, where was I? Oh, we just finished. Yeah, rook takes. Okay, here. Yeah, so here, all right, so we're looking at queen f4, rook takes. So another reason why that wouldn't be so good is because this rook is hanging. Right? So another reason. Although he does have the check here, so it gets complicated. It
Wait,
gets-
we can also pin the queen to the king with
you
bishop.
could do that too. Yep, that's true. That's true. Yeah. So yeah, the rook cannot be taken. Queen f4 is a good move. Yeah, it is a good move. He didn't play it just yet, but that is a good move. All right. So what else do you think? What do you think he did here?
Rook g6.
Rook g6. Again, that allows the blocking, and the rook is kind of activated, and yeah. So here he actually just repositioned his bishop to protect the passed pawn here again, right? So now it's on the same diagonal as the king, and so he does not want to lose this pawn. It's a very powerful, very useful pawn. So bishop c4 to protect the pawn again. King goes back to h8, so he's basically waiting for white to invade, and now we go queen f4. And now we're threatening all kinds of things. Queen check, followed by a rook check, and then if the king ever comes back to g8, we have a discovered check. So all kinds of nasty things there. So rook drops back. Yeah, if he goes rook g7, yeah, we can win the queen there. Yeah, I mean it kind of falls apart after queen f4. Yeah, I believe after queen f4, black resigned here. Because like what is he gonna do? Yeah.
Play for a stalemate.
You can always play for a stalemate, even in a world championship match, right? It's a possibility. So another beautiful way to finish would be queen takes h6, rook h7, rook f8 check, and mate. That's one way to finish. Let's see. Another way to finish would be, let's say we can, do the same thing, and then maybe check, followed by mate here, or yeah, it's just, the queen must take, and if the rook ever leaves, we have this discovery, which is kind of nasty.
Well, how is that
Um,
made? Wait a minute.
So
Oh.
yeah, queen takes here, and if the rook ever moves, let's say the rook moves here, we have check, discovered check, and now the pawn's one square away from
Oh,
promotion,
right.
and it just gets nasty. if the rook comes back, we can take, and we win the queen beautifully like that. The queen is pinned. So yeah. So yeah, very nice game. So after queen f4, Boris Spassky resigned and started clapping, as did the whole audience as well. Everybody gave him a standing ovation of clapping. It was his first time he beat Boris Spassky, game 6 of the World Championship match, and of course he went on to win the World Championship match after that. So yeah, what do you guys think of that game? Any comments or questions or observations? What do you think?
Fischer had lost the first 6 games before that? First
No,
5
no,
games?
he didn't lose the first 6 games. I think a few of them were draws, and I think the second one, Fischer was a quirky guy. I don't know if you guys have read up on Fischer. He's such a quirky guy. Like he would demand a fee. He would demand to get paid just for arriving at a tournament. He called it an appearance fee. So it's I don't know if it was like $500,000 or what, but he's like, I want money just for appearing on a tournament. Not even if I win, just for being there. Isn't that amazing? Like, wouldn't that be nice if you can demand that? You say, I'm going to be here. You got to pay me just for being here. Before I even do anything, I want you to pay me.
It's common among sports people now.
Oh, right. But maybe that, but amongst
Tennis
chess players,
pros and golf pros.
right. I mean, it's pretty great. It's a nice setup there. So, yeah. So he was very demanding, and he was like notorious about like lighting and how close the audience was to the stage. He had all these weird complaints, and so they eventually had to change location from like on the stage in front of the audience. They had to go to a separate room by themselves because he was claiming that the audience was too close and he can hear their thoughts. and so yeah. So after all those complaints, and Boris Spassky was kind of gracious in that he went along with all of his demands, which a lot of people refused to. But yeah, very quirky guy. But yeah, he ended up winning and a great game. So do you think Spassky should have tried for the stalemate? What do you guys think?
Never say die.
Say again?
Never say die.
Never say die. I mean, I always tell students never surrender, never surrender. What movie is that from?
Never give up, never surrender.
Yeah, there you go. Did Churchill say that? I don't know. I always think in terms of movies. But yeah, that's never surrender. So always keep playing. It's not over until checkmate is what I say. You should force your opponent. This is kind of how I describe it. You force your opponent to prove that they can beat you, right? It's not enough to have a winning position. You got to force them to prove that they can beat you, right? So don't get discouraged by a losing position, because in chess, anything can happen, right? So yeah, that's the game. All right, so we'll do another game, another wonderful master game. So Dave and Max, am I gonna see you next week also?
I'm not sure. I'll be in touch with Evan.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
No problem. Hope you enjoyed it. Yeah, hope you enjoyed it. So I'll see you guys next week. We'll pick another game like this. Is there, by the way, is there any requests you guys have for a game that you want me to analyze, like a master game or anything? Or should I just pick a good one from history? Because there's a bunch.
I'd like to see the opera game.
The opera game. That's
Paul Morphy.
That's Morphy. Yeah, that's a famous. Okay, we can work on that. Yeah, Morphy. That was a quick one, but we can. That's a very very important one to go over as well. Cool. All right, we'll do that, and if we can fit in another one, because it's kind of a short game, we'll do another one. But cool. All right, guys. So
Thank you.
hope you guys enjoyed it.
you.
Hope you guys have a
Yes.
wonderful week.
And you too.
Take care.
Thank you.
Have a great
Take
night, guys.
All right,
Thank you very
bye.
much, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Good class.
You're welcome.